everyone, and welcome to First Things First. It is a Wednesday morning in New York. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We have a very big audience this morning. Both of my little girls, both under age 4, are up and watching. So Harper and Quinn, may this be your grand introduction to sports as you know it.
And when you get home, when mommy gets home and you get home from school, ask her about chocolate.
No.
Ask her about staying up past
See,
6
things
p.m.
just got X-rated.
Do you know other little girls get to eat something called McDonald's?
Okay.
There's all these things in the world you don't know about, little girls.
The show just went to a really bad place.
This is what you wanted to do.
That was my fight.
Hey, guys, I want to say hi to my kids.
Yep.
Okay,
no problem.
Hey, Harper and Quinny.
Yeah.
Uncle Nick's got all types of treats for you if you want to come over.
It's been taken to a very
And
bad
school's
place.
overrated. What you're going to do the next 6 hours is overrated.
Stay in school, don't do drugs. Okay, Harper and Quinny. That's, I did it. Let's start the program. We are going to start with the fallout from the very physical game between the Bengals and the Steelers. Juju Smith-Schuster and George Aloko were suspended 1 game each following their big hits on Monday night. Both players filed appeals. Now, Smith-Schuster's suspension has already been upheld. The league is still reviewing the Aloko hit. Mike Tomlin addressed Smith-Schuster's hit yesterday.
I'll stand by my statement last night that, you know, his actions after the hit are more disturbing than the hit itself. Oftentimes plays like that are teachable moments. And when you look at it, you have an opportunity to talk about ways that you could be safer and so forth. He's a better sportsman than he displayed after the block. And you know, you got to acknowledge that, and he's got to work hard so that people understand the type of man he is.
All right, Cece, what was your reaction to these suspensions?
I like first how Coach Tomlin. Now, you talking about there are leaders and there are leader of men. And in the press conference, I'm forever impressed with Mike Tomlin, how he attacks situation like this, because these aren't easy, because you're trying to teach people to play a physical style. Now, Juju Schuster, to me, is an innocent bystander. Last year, I mean, he's the youngest player, just turned 21, just got his driver's license. They're playing jokes on him and everything. He's riding a bike and everything. How'd you like to be?
Bicycle.
How'd you like to be a millionaire and riding a bike? Right? Antonio Brown is driving a Bentley, and you know, another player. So, you know, what Mike Tomlin did, I have a lot of respect for that. He addressed the situation. But Juju, he was playing at USC last year. This is a big rivalry. He got drugged into this. And at the time he made the block, because of the violence of the game, which led to him being involved. And now he's a wide receiver. Now, we can very seldom have a physical presence on the game, but we can also be a part of one of those big hits. So you're always trying to protect yourself, and you're always trying to be, you want to make positive plays for your teammates and be able to block, like the legendary Hines Ward used to do as a Pittsburgh Steeler before him. But as Coach Tomlin said, it wasn't the hit that really got him the suspension. It was the aftermath, him standing over him, walking over him, looking down at him. Also, I believe who the player it was, because it was Vontaze. I believe that was added to it. But he's an innocent bystander. He will learn from this, because he'll be part of this rivalry and the rivalry at Baltimore for a long, long time. I like the way the coach handled it. I thought it was a little severe for him. I thought other guys deserved the suspension, but this was his first offense. I mean, the guy's played 10 NFL games. So what does he know? And what did he do wrong besides the last action of standing over him? Now, that is not a suspendable offense. So I like the way Tomlin addressed it. I don't like the inconsistencies of guys getting suspended. Ioka was a little bit different. This is his 3rd time being involved with the league office as far as hitting a player, defenseless player. 2 times fined before. But his also was the last play of all these sequence of plays. So it's how the game went. I'm not surprised that he got suspended for a game, but it's really hard with the league office being, we saw a brawl last week and the guys end up with a suspension. We saw Juju Schuster make a block on a guy and we see him get suspended. So it's hard to weigh that both of these offenses were the same and they end up with the same penalty.
I thought Iloka's suspension was ridiculous. I want to start there, because Iloka didn't stand over anybody. Iloka, no. And you're right, Cece, it's his 3rd time in the league office, but some context for the viewers. In 2013, he got fined for a hit. In 2015, he got fined for a hit. And we're now in 2017. The guy's a hard-hitting safety. That is what he is out there.
And with the new rules, the safety position is the most unfair and the hardest to play in professional football pertaining to hitting defenseless players.
And so my point is, if Iloka, a guy who plays as often as he does and plays his style, once every 2 years, he has an errant hit that gets you fined, I don't think that puts him in. I know technically he's a repeat offender, but I don't think he's a guy that's out there headhunting. Like, I don't think that's what his reputation is. You mentioned his height leads to some of this.
Yes.
The other reason I think Iloka's is ridiculous is I can say with full confidence, even with his history, if this happens in a different game that hadn't been as ugly as this game, he's no chance people are calling for a suspension. People are saying that's a 15-yard penalty. It's against the rules. With all that said,
Juju's sister too, right?
Agreed. Absolutely. If those things happened in a game where they were the only unnecessary roughness penalties, no one's calling for the suspension. Now, I agree with you on Juju and Mike Tomlin. Maybe it's a little harsh, but the standing over a prone player who's just been maybe knocked unconscious, certainly hit very hard, that's a bad look for the NFL. And so in a vacuum, and even Iloka, if the NFL just wants to say, listen, we're not calling you a dirty player, we're not saying you're a bad guy, but we so badly want these hits totally removed, we're just going to start suspending guys, even if it seems harsh. In a vacuum, I'd be okay with it. But it's what you mentioned. It's that on this same NFL Sunday, I guess this was a Monday night, but in the same NFL weekend, we saw what Rob Gronkowski did, and he got one game. Rob Gronkowski's play has no business in football. It was not even a play. It was after the fact, dirty, premeditated, and it had, by the way...
And in a game that didn't have the same type of intensity or edge to it that the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game had.
The Juju was trying to make a play to spring a teammate open. Iloka was trying to save the game by breaking up a touchdown. Gronk's up by 20, angry he didn't get a call he didn't need to get, and attacks a guy. And I don't think attack is too strong. So when Gronk gets a game, Talib and Crabtree get a game, and then Juju and Iloka get one game, that's what bothers me, that they all got the same penalty.
So what do you do about it? For guys like John Runyon in the league office who have to look at everything and then decide, is this one game, is this 2 games, there'll be appeals, is this a fine? How do you have some sense of consistency so not only does the league know how they're going to punish these guys, but the guys know what they do and how they can maybe better play the game or better manage
I think the league is at a kind of a crossroad. They're kind of in a tough spot. Now, I think that this is the first time, though, Jenna, that we've seen players suspended like this. I mean, when people wonder, well, the Crabtree thing, man, these guys should get 3 games. These guys should, I mean, we weren't suspending guys for fighting before. So there's only a few cases where guys were suspended. So I think the consistency, I think that this game was very different. And I think the league office looked at this game different, almost like a brawl in basketball where, you know, you see a guy come off the court and he gets suspended. It's like, wow, those guys were actually fighting and they got a game, and this guy just only steps onto the court. I think because it was just the game makes it seem as if this is league-wide. But this is more of an isolated, how they're going to handle the situation that happened between the Steelers and the Bengals.
I do want to say this as far as arguing in the NFL's defense. Of all the leagues, it is the most difficult for pro football to give out any type of penalty just because of the schedule.
16 games.
16. So a 1-game NFL suspension, math-wise, is a 10-game suspension in baseball, a 5-game suspension in basketball, as far as percentage of the season. So it's a lot easier for an NBA, if there's an NBA fight, say you get 5, you get 3. And I almost wonder, and it would be a big departure, but if the NFL is going to start suspending guys for on-field behavior much more often than they have in the past, I almost wonder if you have to be able to break it up by the half. Like, you know what? If Gronk gets 1 game, then and we want to suspend Iloka, does Iloka get suspended for a half? Like, that doesn't exist in pro football. It's never existed in pro football.
No. It's off of what college football, you being thrown out of the game. If you're thrown out in the second quarter, then you have to sit a half of the next week.
But there's got to be some differentiation between what Juju Smith-Schuster did and what Rob Gronkowski did. And they can't both be equal in punishment when one was a premeditated, really terrible, and the other one could actually be a legal hit. Block.
Vontaze Burfict was a defenseless player. All right, so Juju got suspended for not only hitting a defenseless player, but also the taunting and the game that he was in. Rob Gronkowski, he got suspended for hitting a defenseless player. So by the letter of the law, they're in the same family, but we see it, and aesthetically, we know they're not the same, even though they receive the same punishment.
Welcome back to First Things First. That guy's here.
One of our favorite guests.
What up, Coach? Good to see you.
I haven't taken care of that part, though. You told me
at some point we got to work that
Since
out.
when is a handshake a bad thing? A hearty handshake used to be a staple of Americana, if you will, and now I get ridiculed for it.
Nick Wright, when I first met you, a handshake or anything you were totally against.
Right,
You're like
and you tried to get me to
people.
warm up to physical contact with other human beings. I shake Coach's hand.
Coach does not need to see our dirty
That's true. It's an odd choice by me, but that's the way I went.
I have that effect on a lot of people.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
He drafted you in the first round, Coach.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Coach, let's talk about the Steelers for a beat here. They won a very physical and costly game against the Bengals on Monday. Obviously, the biggest story of the game was the Ryan Shazier injury, which we've discussed at length. But the other storyline here was the Steelers once again playing to the level of their competition, whether it's up or down. They had to come back from down 17 in this one. Here's Big Ben on his team responding to adversity.
Championship caliber teams find ways to win football games, right? I mean, I know that you guys have been here long enough and seen us play, and I've been a part of this, that in the past, when we've had these close games that we've had this year, it seems like in the past we haven't found ways to win them. And championship caliber teams like the Patriots and others find ways to win those close games. And this year we're finding ways to win these close games, whether that's just believing in each other, never giving up, never feeling like you're out of it. I just think it's trust, faith, and belief in each other and in what we're doing.
Coach, what do you think? Is Big Ben right that the Steelers are a championship caliber team?
Well, it doesn't matter whether I think they're definitely a championship caliber team, and whether he's right on it being a situation where they deal really well with adversity or whether they're inconsistent, all that matters is what they believe. So if he believes they're doing an excellent job of overcoming adversity and finishing games, and that's the sense in the locker room, to me, that's a great thing. As a coaching staff, you're probably looking at it going, why are we starting slow? Why are we having these issues? But if the players collectively agree that or see it that way, to me, that's a really positive thing that's coming out of the locker room.
But isn't that a far more dangerous position to find yourself in? I mean, we say it all the time, they're playing up, they're playing down. They really play up and down. I mean, they go out against the Bengals, and they're down 17-0. They got to fight and claw their way back to beat the Bengals.
Yeah, it's not where you want to be. And from a coaching perspective, it's frustrating because you understand the potential that this team has. You see what they can do offensively at any given point. And going through a long season, you get these ups and downs. Going through a long season, you tend to look past opponents, and you're constantly trying to get your team not to do that. But the fact that they have been able to turn it on when they need to and win these games is a real positive. And their outlook is more important than the coach's outlook because they're seeing it as, look how resilient we are, not look at how inconsistent we are.
Ben, players see things they want you to see them. But the truth of the matter is any player would want to be great and be great every week. Every player and every team wants to be consistent. The real championship teams are more consistent than the other teams. Now, all championship teams do find a way to win. But I've watched the games, though, Ben. The teams haven't played great. Now, if teams were playing out of their mind against you, then I would sit back and be like, you know something? Man, we're getting everyone's best shot. Everyone's getting up for us. Everyone's playing great football. But no, that's not the case. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they look at the opposition. They look ahead. They've already looked ahead to the New England game, and they play to that opposition. All right? They let a lot of noise. As you mentioned earlier, there's different families. They got different rules. And they got different functionality. They function in chaos different than other people. That's kind of the way they do things. But being consistent is what championship football is about, because when the weather changes, December and January, those are the things that are more predictable. Their defense, that's a real concern. All right, their corners, their inability to be able to get off the field on third down. Now, that offense, the reason why I would be concerned is because that offense is not able to carry them. I don't know if their defense is going to play the way they did the first 10 games.
That's especially, and I want to preface it with, I wouldn't even feel right discussing this if Ryan Shazier hadn't shown real progress. We got very promising news out of Pittsburgh yesterday about him getting movement back in his legs, and that he's going to be back home today. So that's obviously the more important part of it. Ryan Shazier, going into Monday night's game, he and Calais Campbell were neck and neck for Defensive Player of the Year. Like, missing him is an enormous problem for them. Joe Hayden, that secondary, you can line up the problems the secondary's had with when Joe Hayden broke his leg.
Yes.
Like, now they expect to get Joe Hayden back.
Yes, they have a journeyman, Gerald Sensabaugh, playing the left corner on the right side of the offense. They benched him during the game last week. So that problem is not going to go away.
So if they are going to be a championship caliber team with those injuries on defense, they're going to have to do it the way the Steelers have been in the mix the last few years, which is simply by being better than you on offense. And the last 7 weeks, since this team's been on the 7-game winning streak, here's what they have going for them. They have a quarterback who's playing over this stretch like a top 5 quarterback. I believe in Mike Tomlin. I think they have a top 5 coach. And over the last 7 weeks, they've had the best running back in football in Le'Veon Bell, outside of maybe Alvin Kamara, and the best wide receiver in football outside of no one in Antonio Brown. Like, that's why have I been so high on the Steelers? Because I'm, in all sports, a better on huge talent. And the Steelers have such overwhelming talent on both sides of the ball when healthy, and on the offensive side of the ball right now. Like, what you can't, the Patriots always talk about, we want to take away, if we're playing Julio Jones in the Super Bowl, that's the guy we want to take away. Now, they weren't able to, but they try to key on who is your true difference maker, take him away. You can't, who are you going to take away against Pittsburgh? Pick the guy, because the guy you don't say is the best in the league at what he does. Like, that's why there's such a tough matchup.
Well, look, when New England plays them, they're going to double team Antonio Brown. That's the first thing.
Yep.
They're going to have and they're going to do that with the post safety. They're going to have an 8-man box to deal with the running game, so there'll be a guy down the box. And the key thing there is to keep Ben Roethlisberger in the pocket, because with Ben, big plays or broken plays become big plays.
Yes.
Now, what they're going to, and that's the formula, okay? Is it an easy formula to execute? No, it's not. But New England has done it in the past and has the capacity to do that. Now, what Pittsburgh's going to have to do is be able to create some things to break those tendencies. And just going back to the consistency versus resilience debate, there's a lot of teams, Cleveland, you see it weekly, Cincinnati, you saw it last week, even when they play really well, they find a way to lose those games. So you do have to give Pittsburgh some credit for when they're not playing well to find a way to win those games.
You got a lot of teams in this league that feel like they're 50 or 55-minute teams, right? Teams that can stick around, and then find a way at the very end. The Jets most this year have felt like that. I know they got a big win. Where it's like, oh, you're right there. The Browns have felt like that all year. The Steelers are a full 60-minute team.
Well, this is the thing I don't like about the Steelers, is the Steelers think, and just like you think they're that talented. And when you get in these cold weather games, you can't throw the ball, the wind is blowing 25 miles an hour, just thinking I'm a good team, that don't get it done in the playoffs, all right? They won't be able to replace Ryan Shazier, and their cornerback play, if it don't, New England's going to eat them up with their running backs getting on their linebackers and out in space.
Right now, Bill Belichick was like, what was the second thing you said? I have to double team AB? Okay, cool, got it.
I think he's familiar with that play.
We are now joined by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth. Mark, it's been too long. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you guys again. Always miss you guys when I'm not here.
Good to see you,
That's what we
brother.
like to hear.
Yeah.
All right,
Get
let's
some
talk.
sunshine this weekend?
Oh, I was in Florida, baby. Just
I saw you. You look a little bit darker.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Good.
I'm all
Studying by the pool.
So, Dolphins.
Yes.
Let's talk about your Broncos for a second.
Oof.
Stink. And, well, the Broncos
Did she just say that your Broncos stink?
stink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Joke. That was awesome.
Yeah, she is right.
Yep. As we say around these here parts, they're big bad. Fallen to 3-9 after losing to the Dolphins last week, a game that Schlereth studied for out in the sun. Was their 8th straight loss. Team president John Elway did not mince words about his disappointment.
This has been a tough year. It's not what the Broncos are about. I'm embarrassed about it and the fact that this has happened, and, we'll do my part to hopefully get this thing turned around.
All right. Well, we don't want you to mince words either because you are connected to this team. How much is Elway to blame for the mess that's going on in Denver?
Well, I think when you look at the personnel, I mean, he's ultimately, as Bill Parcells said, the guy who buys the groceries. And when you look at the offensive personnel, this is not an NFL offense right now at any level. That's where you sit. You don't have an NFL caliber quarterback. You don't have an NFL caliber separation tight end. You don't have, to me, you don't have an elite level running back, although I do think C.J. Anderson's a pretty good back.
Yeah, he's a good pro.
Right, good pro, but you don't have a special back, okay? And your offensive line has been garbage since you came in. It continues to be garbage. So with those things, if you're picking the players and those are the issues that you have, we used to say this all the time. You can be fast and dumb and still make it in the NFL because you're fast. You can't be slow and dumb. Like, slow and dumb doesn't work, right? And right now, you look at them from an offensive perspective, there is not, in my mind, but one guy who is kind of an elite level separation guy. That's Emmanuel Sanders.
Yes.
And that is about it. You just don't have the talent base on the offensive side of the ball to consistently win games in this league.
But, Mark, wasn't the thought when this season started that defense was so strong that those corners and safeties, they just such a good that for whatever reason, however bad the offense was going to be, the defense was going to keep them in games until they could figure out what they were going to do at quarterback?
Yeah, if you don't turn it over like it's your job, then that's But when you're turning it over like it's your job, that's going to be an issue for any defense. And the other thing that you see teams doing to them consistently is they know that if they don't put the ball into the defense's hands, they can't win. That you can see the frustration from the defensive players. If they give up a field goal, they're like, oh, well, we just lost. Well, unless we intercept the ball and take it to the house. And, I mean, you could see the frustration building. And what do? Man, they get 3-step drops, 5-step drops, balls out of your hand, run the football. Don't be afraid to punt. Don't let Von Miller wreck a game off the edge. And don't let the defenders eventually are sitting there in the second quarter going, man, if we don't get a couple of pick sixes, we're losing this game. So they start to gamble, and they give up some big plays.
So this is tell me if I'm got this right, because I'm going to stray from my corner a bit, but I think I have this right. Sometimes an offense is so bad, it kneecaps the defense's ability to make plays.
Sure.
Because the other team goes into a game saying, the only way we lose is if their defense scores. So we are going to have the most vanilla, conservative offensive game plan. That's not going to let Von Miller come across and take the ball from me like Khalil Mack did. And so the defense then, like you said, they realize, all right, we're not going to have a bunch of 30-yard passes downfield that we can tip and then intercept. So then they start taking chances, and the defense gets worse than it should be because of the offense.
Absolutely. Start jumping a few routes. It goes back to 2015 when they beat the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship. And Tom Brady got hit 24 times, 4 sacks, and they end up winning a game. I think it was 20-18. So go back to last year, 2016. The Patriots came in here. They win a game 16-3, where Tom Brady completes 40-some% of his passes. It was, as you said, the most vanilla game plan. They just went, we are not going to let your defense wreck our day. And that's it. And you've seen that consistently happen with teams. Now, they're so bad right now that Miami turned it over 3 times and still won 35-9. And the offense didn't score a touchdown. It was a defensive touchdown that put those points on the board. So that's how bad this football team is right now.
What's priority number one now? I mean, clearly it looks like they go out and get a quarterback immediately, but when you start listing all the different areas on this offense that need immediate help.
I think obviously the quarterback here was, in my estimation, one of the mistakes that John made, and it was something that on my own radio show in Denver, 104.3 The Fan, I had been like pounding the table. Go out and get an adult to play quarterback. Go find Josh McCown or one of these guys who's an adult who can not only play and stand instead of your developing quarterback, but teach a guy how to watch film. There's a difference between watching film and studying film. A big difference.
Tell us.
And the college players come in, they don't know how to study the game. Just because you play a pro sport doesn't make you a professional.
Okay.
And you have to learn. Somebody took you along
Yes.
the way, right, and said, this is what we're looking at. It's not just...
Right. So what I hear you saying is that forget the rest of the team. All right? We know they're talented on defense. We know that they've mismanaged the offense. Demaryius Thomas, we don't talk about him the way we talk about Dez Bryant, but his fall is very, very similar.
Yes.
Now, Emmanuel Sanders is still holding the rope as the most explosive player, most dependable player that they have on their offense. But what you said is they got a dumb quarterback room. So now, what a lot of people don't realize, we gave John Elway all this credit. A couple years ago, he was Executive of the Year. So the thing about it, when the thing starts going bad, yeah, you can look at the players, but you got to look at the guy, just like the Giants did, the guy that's picking the players, Jerry Reese. Like, you got to start pointing blame at who picked these players. So when John Elway was taking the credit, so now the team has won 3 games, right? So now you got to start taking some of this blame, and you really got to take blame for it. It's like me. If the Vikings hired me, and John has done a good job there, and if they hired me to be their general manager in training, eventually that's my role. If I get one thing right, they dang on wide receivers better be good. All right? Like if I mess that position up, I mean, if I draft a bunch of guys, I pay a bunch of guys. I mean, Peyton Manning don't fall in their lap. Like, what is John Elway's resume if Peyton Manning don't fall on his front doorstep?
Yeah.
Well,
Let me just tell you that, because Peyton Manning helped keep Denver as a destination city in the NFL. There are destination cities in the NFL. Guys want to go play there. Denver is one of those places. But if they don't land Peyton Manning, and give John credit for getting Peyton Manning, because, you know, guys like T.J. Ward and DeMarcus Ware and Aqib Talib, they want to come play with Peyton Manning. Don't make no bones about it. But the problem with a guy like Peyton Manning, there's only 3 or 4 of them in the league. When you get a guy like that, he is the ultimate compound W. He just covers warts. And so you start to think that you start to think that we don't really have that many warts. And then all of a sudden that guy retires, and you start realizing he knows every hot route. He adjusts every hot route. He adjusts protections to keep himself clean. He covers all
Force
the issues.
multiplier.
Right. What?
A force multiplier.
There you go.
Well,
and he covers all that stuff.
And it's one of the reasons why the year they won the Super Bowl, when Manning's stats were awful, he was still an above-average quarterback because he audibled into the right place. He set the protections. Even though his arm was shot, his brain was as good as it ever was. But, Jenna, I want to say one thing about what you said quickly, which is they went into this year thinking, well, we've got this great defense. We'll just make do at quarterback.
Right.
The reason that's unacceptable is because that's what they tried to do last year. They didn't learn from their mistake. Last year they said, all right, listen, we tried to bring back Brock Osweiler. Didn't work out. We've got this 7th-round pick, Trevor Siemian, we kind of like. We spent a 1st-round pick on Paxton Lynch. We'll figure it out at quarterback. And they started off last year. What were they last year?
They started off 4-0 and then ended up 9-7.
9-7, and I think they, at one point, I think they were 7-3, and then they fell apart down the stretch, if I remember correctly. Last year, it wasn't good enough. And the only upgrade they had in the quarterback room was to take Brock Osweiler off Cleveland's hands. They made the exact same mistake with a defense, by the way, that's now a year older, with an offensive line that didn't get better, watching Demaryius Thomas deteriorate. So
Osweiler's so good, too. Cleveland cut him and said, we're going to pay you. Put him in y'all's locker room because we know he's I don't know what the force multiplier. What's the opposite?
Force divider.
Yeah, whatever. I need a bigger word for that. Yes.
Let's focus on the team Eli will be facing this weekend. Cowboys have a very average record of 6-6, which is literally the definition of average. They've got favorable matchups coming up against the Giants and the Raiders, and then Zeke is back Week 16 to face Seattle. So it all goes well. If all goes well and Dak rediscovers his game and all the stars align, Dallas can sneak their way into the playoffs. Here's Jerry Jones on if the Cowboys need to run the table.
Really do have to just play this thing series by series, quarter by quarter, and you know the rest. And let's think like that. Let's just see how it works out. But I wouldn't, my experience has been, I wouldn't, with 4 games remaining, a quarter of the season, I wouldn't pencil it in yet.
All right, Mark, what do the Cowboys have to do to even be in contention for the playoffs, to actually make a playoff run?
Well, I look at them, the way they're built. To me, what they have to do is possess the ball and have the lead because they can rush the passer.
Yes.
They can flat rush the passer. You do that, you get opportunities to hit the opponent's quarterback, you will create turnovers, you will create short fields, and you will win football games. So to me, it's imperative. Possess the ball, run the ball, run your play action stuff that you've been accustomed to. Even put Dak Prescott in a little bit more running situations, you know,
run pass options.
Right, all those things. Because if you play that way, you have a really good, to me, you have a, it's when you put your defense out there and you don't have the lead and you can be multiple and you can run it, and they don't have that type of defense. But if you have a lead and they can just pin their ear back and rush the passer, they can be legitimate. They can win a lot of football. It wouldn't shock me if they ran the table.
Yeah, right now the strength of their defense is their ability to rush the passer. They got a bunch of young guys playing corner. We know they got replacements in for Sean Lee in the middle there. That hasn't solidified the defense, a tackling machine. So who are the Dallas Cowboys this late in the season? You mentioned it.
Right.
They're not a great offensive team. They got a great offensive. They got one great unit. That's the offensive line, who hadn't played great this year. Now, we just thought, just normal, NFL, Dak Prescott, in between year 1 and year 2, players in the NFL grow more in that year than any other year. And Dak played fabulous last year. We just thought we had put the multiplier on him. Oh, he's going to do this in year number 2. Well, let's walk that one back a little bit, because this is who the Dallas Cowboys are. Like, they're not going to be a very explosive offense. They're going to be a grinded out, let Dak manage the game, let him use his legs, move the pocket around, try to come up with a few big plays in the passing game. But understand, your defense is undersized. You got a bunch of young guys covering. All right, you need to milk the clock. That defense is better playing 25 to 28 minutes. That's where they're going to thrive. So try to play to that. Even though you might not like your identity, this is who you really are. So Jerry, as you could see, is because they're not really talented. They can't give away. They can't play a bad quarter. They can't play a bad half. They can't afford to lose another game. So you can hear that in Jerry's voice, who's typically, you know, so optimistic about the Cowboys and everything else. Not so much in this interview.
Right. That's what was most jarring to me, is Jerry Jones seemed to have his spirit broken a little bit. Like, he's like, listen, I can't promise anything. Like, let's all calm down.
Well, the last promise he made was that Zeke wasn't going to get suspended.
Right.
So I wouldn't be making. Yeah, I wouldn't be making more promises after that one.
So here is, listen, for the Cowboys to make a playoff run, they have to go 4-0 the rest of the way and have some good luck. Because 10-6.
Good luck. They need some teams to get 4 flat tires,
right,
and don't have the Uber
And
number.
what's happened in the last couple of weeks that leads you to believe they could go 4-0, 3-0, you know, 2-0?
Almost nothing. So I just want to focus on one slight difference here, which is if I'm the Cowboys, if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm not thinking about the next 4 games. I'm thinking about weeks 4 and 5. I'm thinking about that home game against the Rams, where we allowed 19 straight points after a double-digit lead to lose that one. I'm thinking about the next week, the home game against the Packers, where we had a double-digit lead and allowed 20 points in the fourth quarter, where we had a 3-point lead with 1:10 left, where if we want to just go even further, you had the Packers on the fringe of field goal range, 3rd and 8, 30 seconds left in a game you're winning. and you let Rodgers scramble out of the pocket and end up getting a touchdown on the next play. I'm thinking about, because if they're 7-5.
Man, I'm
just saying, if you were my coach, I'd be so damn depressed.
Oh, man,
let's go back and
right
look at all the crap.
No, but
we got to go forward.
But Nick,
Here's why you stink.
Nick, this is the Christmas season. You're the ghost of Christmas past.
Well,
hey, not only Coach Mangini, I hope he's watching the show. We got to stop you looking at the schedule ahead. Not on Nick stink. Now he's going back on the schedule.
The point that I'm making,
you can't go forward and backwards,
is
Nick.
Before Zeke got suspended, when this team wasn't fully operational, they left a couple wins on the table. That if they had only gotten one of them, if they're 7-5, the math is a lot easier.
Bad news for Golden State. They're the only team in all the major sports not named after a city, state, or region. And if that wasn't bad enough, Steph Curry will miss at least 2 weeks with a sprained right ankle. Happened Monday night against the Pelicans. MRI results revealed no structural damage. Nick, are the Warriors still the best team in the NBA without Steph?
No. That would, to me, it is very difficult to say any team would be the best team in the league, no matter how good they are, if you lose one of the, at worst, 4 best players in the league, and some people would say the 2nd best player in the league, in Steph Curry.
Is there one of those 4 players that we could insert in this question and that we would feel more comfortable as them still being the best team?
I mean, the other guy is Durant. Like, would the Warriors still be the best team in the league without Durant? I don't think so. I think it would.
I was even going down to Clay, because I think people take Clay for granted.
Oh, so you meant 4 best players on the Warriors. I meant guys that are in the 4 best league-wide. Would the Warriors still be the best team in the league without Clay?
Even Draymond?
Probably. I'm not certain of it.
I don't think any of the 4 players, and I think that we just can't get away from forgetting how special Steph is. So I think all 4 of those Warriors players, which makes them a very special team, any of them missing from that doesn't make them as special, especially when you talk about matching up with a team like Houston, San Antonio. They need that overall scoring power. So that's what I was trying to.
Absolutely. No, listen, the Warriors have the most talent of any team in the league. But if you remove any of those top 4, most notably, I would say this guy. For a long time, I've been saying Draymond Green is the most important player on the Warriors. I no longer believe that to be true for 2 reasons. One, the addition of Kevin Durant has given them someone else who can protect the rim other than Draymond when they go small. I know when KD's out there, it doesn't seem like they're small, but KD's been outstanding.
And that part we didn't see coming.
Right. I didn't think KD was going to be that level of defender. And the other one is this team feels more like a regular NBA team without Steph than they do if Draymond's missing or KD's missing, because of the pressure he puts on the defense even when he doesn't have the basketball.
Yes.
But, Cece, here's why I am, and listen, I don't wish injury on anyone, so I want to make sure the internet and everyone gets this right. I'm not happy Steph Curry was hurt. I'm excited for what this could mean, though, for Kevin Durant. Let's be honest, Kevin Durant's in a tough place. He averaged 35, 8, and 7 in the finals last year, and nobody cares. He was finals MVP, and nobody cares. His approval rating right now as an NBA player is lowest than it's ever been. He said, Steph's the leader. I don't need to be the leader of this team. Well, now you do. For these couple weeks, 3 weeks, we'll see how long, now you do. And while I like to poke fun at KD, the league is better when all of its best players are in their best mental place. And if KD can carry the Warriors with Steph out, we might see KD come out the other side of this in a better mental state than we've seen him his entire time with Golden State. So that's what I'm looking for while Steph is gone.
Yeah, I think they're going to miss Steph. I think Steph's ability to, you said, pressure the defense and stretch the defense. For one reason, you can't help off of Steph anywhere over midcourt. But his ability to get to the rim, even if he's not going to finish, we don't consider him to be a great finisher, but he has such a stretch from 30 feet to the rim. So once he goes to the rim, it opens up everything for everyone else. So I think that he's the most valuable, and he is the most stable of all the Golden State players.
Yep.
Like, if you look at who mentally, physically, who's the most stable? It's Steph Curry. And we tend to forget just really how special of a player, like, he really is. Like, Steph puts on a show, like, before the game, during the game. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Steph, and there's no way that I think they're the best team, because Steph is a once every 50, 40-year type player. We can't say that he's that good and then, oh, they're still the best team in the league.
I love what you said, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. Durant is in a weird place right now. He's not really sure who he is and what role he plays and how he's perceived, and he's had this, like, very weird stretch of the last, like, 6 months where he's having this seemingly odd identity crisis, if you will. And I think that if you're going to point to something that could actually benefit him, it's to be the guy for a little bit, maybe to go out there and assume the role, and an actual role, which would be team leader, because I don't know if he necessarily has that role when he's playing with Steph out there. And I don't, obviously, like you said, you never want to see a player get hurt, but if there's an opportunity for the perception of who Kevin Durant is to change a little bit, maybe it's, okay, enough with the off-the-court weirdness.
Yes.
Let me go out and just play some basketball now, which is the thing I love to do and the thing I know how to do. My question to both of you is, does it matter if there's some, I was going to say, what would you like to see the drop-off be without Steph in the lineup, if there is one at all, or is it too early and that doesn't even really matter? Because we're looking at maybe Christmas for him to come back, and even then against the Cavaliers might not even be
right. You go through different phases in seasons like the NBA. So this is a phase that they're going to go through. They're going to try to build on. They realize that they have some younger players on their bench. They're going to have to change their rotation, but it's the beginning and end of the day, it's about those other three players. If Draymond, Clay, and KD play at the top of their game, they're still one of the best teams in the NBA. But this does create a certain type of chemistry that, you know, it gives you kind of that DNA that you know that you can tap into later in the season if you get someone nicked. Because when we get to the playoffs, the style of play is so much more physical. And we see so many players in that 2-month span that get nicked. So I think this will help them and the team, because this is still just their second season together.
With KD. And since the Warriors became the Warriors, so 3 1/4 seasons ago, regular and postseason, they win 83% of their games that Steph plays. They win 56% of their games that he doesn't. He's missed 16. Now, KD was only been there for this last year and this. So,
right.
So KD wasn't there for a lot of it. The Warriors, listen, no one's going to feel badly for the Warriors. Even when Steph is not out there, in every game they play, unless they're playing the Cavs, they will have the best player on the court in Kevin Durant. And in every game they play, unless they're playing one of 6 other teams, they will have the best 2 players on the court in Durant and Clay. So they will still have more talent than the vast majority of teams in the league, even with Steph out of the lineup. You mentioned that Durant doesn't have to be the leader. Durant publicly said, I'm not the leader.
And that right there says something in itself. Now, it's very rare do you have that type of greatness that God doesn't put the leadership with that talent. It's just, they just don't come together. And it kind of takes me back to, you know, in a different vein when Charles Barkley says, you know, I'm not a role model.
That's exactly what I was
really?
trying to remember. Yeah.
Well, man, I'm one of the greatest players in the world. Now, how could he take the torch from LeBron with that shot and still in the same breath say, I'm not a leader? Wow, to me, that's a contradiction in itself.
But would he be a leader on another team?
Well, he didn't. It seemed
he wasn't a leader on OKC
because Russell Westbrook was there. But if he was the guy on a team the way Westbrook was,
well, the thing is this: he was better than Russ. He won an MVP in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
But Russ was still the emotional leader of that team, and Russ took all the criticism of that team. I poke fun at KD. I have fun with him on Twitter about his fake Twitters. I'm not very nice to him on TV, but at my core, I am a basketball fan. And so even though I have fun with KD, basketball is better with all these guys operating at maximum capacity. And there's something going on in KD's head that it hasn't really affected his play, but it's affected everything else around him. I would like to see if Steph being out can maybe knock him out of that out of necessity.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.